Is there Nebraska, the state has been really good at it for a long time, especially at the high school level, right?
Mm.
Well documented. Is volleyball grown to the point now, Lincoln, where you think we're past the gatekeeping, where we want to invite in all comers, or where do you think we kind of are as that as the sport has had this like meteoric rise?
I still think that I think within certain portions of the United States we are past that, but I think that I don't think it's popped the public consciousness where you still need to say, oh, we play 3 out of 5, or the fifth set only goes to 15 points.
Mm.
I think that people will put it on like, oh, that's volleyball. It's pretty fun and exciting to watch too. But there may be like, why is that one girl wearing a different colored jersey and running in and off the court? So I think we're getting better, and I think there's a lot of people, especially around Nebraska and the Midwest, the Big Ten footprint, that are past that. Their volleyball is part of their culture. It's something they look forward to in the fall. They're probably following a professional league or two, and that. But I still think there's a lot of people, maybe on the East Coast, maybe in the Southeast, where there's still there's still work to be done, and there's still kind of some ground to be gained.
Mm.
Lincoln, you mentioned professional leagues there, and I'm glad you did because that was going to be my follow-up question to DBs is how much do you think, like we just got some news about the Omaha Supernovas yesterday. How much do you think that's helped maybe people that weren't into the college volleyball scene or they didn't have kids growing up that played volleyball? How much do you think that's helped sort of spread that that knowledge of the sport and the appreciation from the sport so that we don't have some of those questions when people see a game?
I think it's helped a lot too, because I mean, you think about college basketball, you follow these people, you get to know them a little bit, and then you follow them in the pro leagues too. But volleyball, you develop these relationships, watch them play in the court, watch them do these incredibly athletic things, and then they go off to play in a league in Turkey, in Puerto Rico, or Japan, and they're just kind of gone from public consciousness. Where now you can follow Alexi Rodriguez, you can follow, I mean, a Lindsay Krause, Ali Batenhorst, people that you develop these relationships for, cheer on the court, and then after their 4 years of college, 5 years of college, you now can follow them, continue to follow them, and enjoy watching them play volleyball on the court too. So I think it's great for the growth of the sport of volleyball and fandom too, because now you have long-term relationships, and it's a natural progression of it makes the sport bigger than just the college game too. So and I think it is a higher level of volleyball too. So that it bridges the gap between the college game and the Olympics. You kind of have something to fit nicely between that.
Like I want to drill down on DBK here just a little bit, just because following her career, being in the same room with her a fair amount of times, seeing her lately on campus, she commands this presence,
Oh yeah.
right? She's very no nonsense, yet she's got a little bit of a disarming quality to her.
Yeah.
What do you think the transition is stylistically, like demeanor wise? People talk about all the stuff Nebraska brings back, but I
Mm-hmm.
do think there's some very distinct differences between her and Coach Cook.
Oh,
Is
for sure.
that part of the intrigue for such a talented team on paper for you?
Yeah, I mean, John Cook was a legendary coach. He did it. He was very strategic. He was very. I mean, when he would say something to like in press conferences, sometimes it was to motivate a player or kind of needle them a little bit or send a message. Whereas talking to Dani over the years, and especially this past year, she just had just a joy and enjoys the process, enjoys building the relationships with the players too. And I think, I mean, it's very disarming. You played I think the soundbite from a press conference right before I joined. I mean, there she is talking about how she thinks her team is the best team in the nation. Yeah, she voted them number one, but she did it in a way that's not like, it's not braggadocious. It's not like we're way better than everyone else. Check us out. It's like, no, we believe that we're good, but we're going to work to get even better than everyone else thinks that we can be to win a national title. And she's just very direct, very honest. And I think that comes across, and not only the communication in press conferences, but in her communication with her players. And you talk about the joy that her players have when they're playing with her. They're playing for her. They're playing for each other too. So it's just an infectious energy that she brings and kind of sets the tone at the top.
Mm,
So, Lincoln, I
mm.
want to talk about the polls here for a second because I was a little surprised by a few things. We'll start with Nebraska. Obviously, they got 40 out of the 61 first place votes. I thought it might be a little closer than that with the first place votes with Penn State, but the margin of the actual points in terms of tallied up was relatively close. What does that tell you about how people view Nebraska maybe in different parts of the country as opposed to just looking at the first place votes and being like, oh, they obviously everybody thinks they're the best?
Yeah. Well, I think that the one thing I think Nebraska does return the most talent. They have a number of All-Americans where you look at everyone else in the top 10, I think they have a question mark. I mean, Nebraska has questions of who's going to start too, but they got several high-level options of where they can play. But everyone else has questions, whether it be passing, a lot of setter turnover for those teams, and just maybe a player or an attacker where they need to figure out that thing too. But to me, looking at Nebraska number one, I put out my own one on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think Nebraska just has the most talent. Yes, they changed coaches, but you went from one of the best coaches who's won national titles to one of the coaches who's been in two of the title games this past 5 years. So Nebraska to me, I think that was an easy choice. I was surprised by the number of pushback that, hey, Penn State won the national title. They deserve number one. I'm like, oh, they were ranked number one to end last year too. This is a new season, different roster. They've lost a number of key players. Their top 3 point scorers are all gone.
Yeah.
So I don't see, to me, Nebraska was the obvious choice. And I tried to remove my daily coverage blinders on that and tried to look at it as objectively as possible. But just, I think, a lot of people got to that same end result of Nebraska has talent and potential as well.
Let me ask you something, Lincoln. Stylistically, we get to compare and contrast, right? Coach Cook, once he settled, that was kind of the rotation. I mean, things like hitting out of the back late in the season became a topic. Other coaches, it's fairly seamless, right? It's just what they do. But because it was Coach Cook, it was like, oh, how are we going to figure this out?
Mm-hmm.
With DBK, it's a little different, right? 6'2", very versatile in their offensive attack, right? I think can be significantly more creative. Is that good or a potential caveat? I won't even say bad with as many pieces as she has, right? Sometimes the more versatile you want to be, it's because those same people have different skill sets, but she has a lot of people with those skill sets and she's very creative. Is she adding to the complexity or is that simplified because of the versatility?
I think that her approach to it makes it an asset. She doesn't have a lot of set systems, but she kind of adapts to what the personnel that she has. And that you saw that a lot of Louisville with, like you mentioned, the 6'2". If they had a lot of attackers and a setter who really maybe wasn't a presence at the net, she could adapt and go to a 6'2". She also was very quick with substitution. Somebody's not working or they need to mix up the energy or something like that. She would go to the bench real quick and make a very quick substitution. I think that's going to be an asset for Nebraska. That was one of my favorite quotes from yesterday too. I mean, she did kind of say that, oh, we don't have a starting setter. We don't know who's going to start a setter, whether it's going to be Bergen or Campbell Flynn. But our goal is not to have, take Bergen, who was a starter last year. Our goal is not to make her the best setter by herself in the nation. It's to have the best setter group. So if there's some things that Campbell Flynn does that the team needs, she's not afraid to go to her in that moment to provide that too. And she looks at setters at one position too, but I think opposites were another position where they have a lot of talent, players who are a little bit different, but their goal is not to have one of them emerge as an All-American candidate. It's to have that group be the best opposite group in the nation. So I think her versatility, willingness to try things and maybe mix things up a little bit too, I think is really going to be an asset and fun to watch. And it's something you need when you have 17 players on the roster.
I was in a presentation yesterday to our staff and our presenter, he was talking about maxing out and he actually had some clips from Merritt Beeson on one of his podcasts. And she said something interesting about the team, the camaraderie and kind of the culture, how it led into, Lainey may need something different than Lexi, and Lexi may need something different than Lindsay. And real leadership is understanding that it's customized.
Mm-hmm.
When it's as competitive as I imagine day in, day out, it will be, does that lend itself more to understanding what each player needs, if that makes sense?
I think so. I mean, you could do that and cause chaos. I think you look at what happened to Texas last year too. They had 2 really good setters, and they went back and
The
forth.
problem.
Yeah, it never really. I think it hindered their chances to reach their peak because they didn't know what was going to happen. But I think if you approach it the right way, get the buy-in from everyone, like you may miss a little bit of playing time too, but we're doing this because it'll make our team better. I think that's really where it can become a strength too, but it can go either way too. But I think knowing Dani and the work that she's putting in, she's building in that kind of that muscle memory right now and that mental approach that we're going to do this as a team. And it may make some personal sacrifices along the way, but the end goal is going to be worth it if you just trust and buy into the process too. So I agree with you that it can go south very quick, but everyone's bringing something different. And if she sticks true to that and uses that approach the whole season, I think it'll pay dividends.
Lincoln, how important was it, or do you think it'll end? Because you'll get it, because you know so much. But how important was it when they rolled out the transitional change and Coach Cook makes the announcement that assistants were already in place? It had been done behind the scenes. I still think that's one of the beautiful things that Dan and that athletic department should get a lot more credit for the transition in terms of the continuity of replacing such a great leader. Like, it typically doesn't happen that seamlessly ahead of time.
I struggle to think of anything that has been. I mean, the other case is Louisville kind of doing that, but Louisville was set up by the same kind of system too, with what Nebraska did. Yeah. I don't know of another situation that's been that smooth, and also the assistant coach staying too. I think that's maybe an underrated part too, because that takes a risk by Dani, because she's leaving behind. I mean, she worked with Dan Meskey for 8 years at Louisville. She was very trusted, they work very well together and we're in sync on a lot of things too. That's Dani being willing to take a risk, put herself out there, put herself in an uncomfortable situation. You think, I'm going to take over one of the main schools in college volleyball. I'm going to be uncomfortable with that too. Like,
because even for her, she's kind of outsider on that staff.
Yeah,
even as an alum.
She knew Jalen kind of in the recruiting circles, and Kelly Hunter and her worked together. Kelly was a player when Dani was assistant coach, but then she hired a GA who was an interim who said, "Yeah, I'm willing to try you out and stick you in that role, make you a full-time assistant." I mean, it's just the trust that Dani has, not only she trusted John Cook in that transition. Like, you had good assistants, and also to know that she is safe in herself and kind of confident in her abilities, that she can kind of implement her system and she's not going to be undermined, because I think that also took buy-in from her, but the assistants, like, things are going to be different. And I think that makes it exciting for them and is a refresh as well too. So there's just a lot of trust. And like you said, that transition was seamless. And I think the best thing that possibly could happen for Nebraska too, because there was a lot of speculation for those 20 minutes or so between the announcements too, but to quash that, and I think that really earned the trust of the players, the assistants, and then put Dani in a position to be successful this year.
Lincoln, I wanted to switch over to Creighton here for a second. They came in number 12 in the preseason poll. I was a little surprised they were given that much of a benefit of the doubt, considering you lose Coach Booth, you lose Nora Sis, you lose Kendra Waite. Like, that seemed like that's a lot of departures from a really good volleyball team last year. What did you think about where Creighton ended up and how they were viewed by the poll?
I agree. I thought it was a little bit high. I was thinking about where I would rank them. I would rank them for sure, maybe kind of in the lower teens, and maybe 15 to 20, because yes, Nora Sis is a big loss, but I think Kendra Waite is an even huger loss. I mean, Creighton did get a setter from California who I haven't seen yet. We'll get to see her this fall. But Ava Martin is a known quantity, and I think they got a couple transfers as well too. So it's really going to be kind of, to me, they're a little bit unknown because of all the moving parts, the late coaching transition, and some of what the transfers look like. I think they have a lot of talent, but setter is the key position that I would like to see. I did watch them with their scrimmage in the spring against UNO and Omaha, and they
How
got
about that?
talent
How
there
about that
too.
hire, Lincoln? Like that's going to age well at Omaha.
Oh yeah, Matt Butler is great. Yeah, I think they're doing good stuff there too. But I think that spring match may have been a result of where Omaha is, and maybe not as much as where Creighton is. So I think that I think Creighton has potential this year too. I mean, when you got somebody the talent level of Ava Martin, you're going to win a lot of matches too. They'll be another Big East contender. I kind of look at the preseason rankings as I have question marks. Prove it to me. I may kind of deduct you on that. They may have gotten a little bit of benefit of the doubt with the kind of the name and kind of the reputation they have. I think there are some teams, especially right behind Creighton too, that got a benefit of the doubt too. But Creighton will have to prove it, and I think they have some talent to do some good things this year.
So I was going to ask you about that because I'm looking at this poll and I'm looking at Purdue in particular as a team right behind Creighton. And I go, okay, they had a lot of attrition, mostly by choice, not by graduation. And you're sitting there and I'm going, okay, I don't know how they're getting the benefit of the doubt to be the number 15 team in the country. Is that one of the teams you were talking about?
Yeah. I think Purdue is on there. Kansas got it pretty high in the Big 12. I mean, Matt Ulmer is a good coach as well too, but I think that's going to be a little bit of a shift there too.
I think they get a lot of credit for their portal work, right?
Yeah. But I think that they lost one of their best hitters who went to Northwestern. So I think Kansas will be good, but I think they lost a lot. Matt Ulmer got in some good players too, but I think there's a little bit of unknown factor of how they're all going to mesh together. But Purdue, I think, was definitely the one team that, I mean, they lost 2 All-American outside hitters. They lost a couple middles to the transfer portal as well, too. Their Libero graduated. They had another middle graduate. So I think they're going to be in for a hard reset. I mean, but Dave Shondell, the coach of Purdue, knows what he's done. He's has a proven track record, too. So maybe that's just a little, those votes are trust in Dave Shondell that he'll build a good team eventually.
Lincoln, let me ask you something philosophically. With all the great volleyball that's played, even from NAIA to Division I across the state, it is fantastic, right? And there was always kind of this little family deal with Coach Pettit and his affinity for Kirsten and Coach Cook and Kirsten's relationship. It's pretty friendly in terms of the mutual admiration. Do you see that dynamic changing at all with the non-cons that they'll play, the matches that they'll play, the growth of the sport and the intensity within the state? Do you see the dynamics of the Creighton, Nebraska volleyball thing changing, or does it start with Creighton winning more?
I don't think the dynamics will change. It'll be different because you don't have 2 long entrenched coaches, but I think that's what it was back when Booth first started at Creighton too. I mean, Creighton really wasn't much of any program, and Nebraska was doing them a favor by playing them early on too. And now Creighton's built themselves. Will Creighton beat Nebraska at some point? Yeah, probably. Will it be this year? Probably not. So I think that there is a lot of respect, and I think too you look at Creighton staff too. I mean, yes, Rosen was elevated the head coach, but their associate coach Angela Oxley-Barons is a former Husker. I think there's that connection too. Matt Buttermore in Omaha, his wife is a former Husker too. I think so. You look at the connections that are at the other programs, the Division I programs in the state, and I think those relationships are going to continue to grow. And having Dani as a native Nebraskan as well too, she appreciates the culture and realizes the culture is not just the Huskers, it's the other programs. It's the Division I, Division II, the NAIA schools too, that it's part of a larger infrastructure that makes volleyball special in the state. It's not just, I mean, Nebraska is the flagship, but there's a lot of other good volleyball going on in the state.
Yeah, I agree. Let me ask you something philosophically about the sport, because I think it's there are a couple of sports that were way ahead of the NIL transfer portal, the movement game, volleyball and wrestling being 2 of them. We've seen players change schools, impact players for a long time. So maybe I'm answering my own question, Lincoln, but what do you think happened, or where do you think happened? I asked this question about baseball. It used to be super coasty, right? Mm-hmm. Left coast, really dominant, USC, UCLA, Arizona State. We've seen this shift in terms of where regional power resides. What happened, do you think, in volleyball where we went from the coasts to Penn State to the central region. Now, Penn State did their thing again, but when did the shift happen and move inward versus what we had seen in the success of the sport historically?
Yeah, I think you look back at the 90s. I mean, even then, I think you look when Nebraska won their first national title, and then Penn State won one a couple of years later. That really shifted the power from the West Coast to more central. I don't know if you include Penn State in that too, but I think you look at the Big Ten footprint and realize, I think the Big Ten realized the potential of the sport. And as a conference, they started to invest as well too. And I think you look at why that continues now. The Big Ten network is a big reason.
Yeah,
And I think,
their media day coverage was
oh
fantastic.
yeah. Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. And I think why Nebraska too, you look at the work that Terry Pettit did with Nebraska Public Television. So I think getting volleyball on TV is a large part of that, because fans watch and they realize, hey, this is exciting to watch. So philosophically, I think that the Nebraska with Nebraska Public Television, that was a big thing. And then I think the Big Ten Conference committing to it. And that's why the Big Ten continues to be one of the leaders, because they've dedicated the resources, they've dedicated the coverage hours. And I think it's not a surprise too. And also the person behind all that is Sue Marriott, who is a native Nebraskan.
Oh yeah,
well,
one of my faves.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, worked a ton with her. Let me ask you something about kind of the AVCA historically, and I think since the polls, whatever it is, 1982, I think it started. So I know that a third of the time, preseason number one has won it since 82. But an interesting fact is there's been 5 teams that have won it wire to wire. 05 Nebraska is in that 5. When you look at what it takes to maintain, to sustain, to the hunter versus the hunted, and all of the coaching cliches, for you, how much does just good fortune, a little ball luck, like what goes into being able to go wire to wire for you outside of health?
Well, having depth, I think, not just besides health, but players are going to have off nights as well too. You need to have someone that you can rely on. Also, I think you need to have veteran leadership as well too. I think you look at Nebraska's senior and their junior class, especially, they've been through the battles. They've been to the last 2 Final Fours, know what it takes to win at elite level, and they have a chip on their shoulder too. I mean, you heard Bergen Riley mention it. They mentioned that yesterday, that they're hungry. They're not going to be content. They've come close. They've been in the title match. They had to match point against the eventual national champion last year, and so I think you need to have that drive, that luck as well too, that your plane doesn't get stuck on the tarmac at State College when you're trying to make that back-to-back down in Rutgers or Maryland. So I think that was well too. And I think you need to be tested early so you can handle the grind later. And Nebraska's schedule is going to set up for that too. I mean, they lucky for Nebraska, they have an identity, and they'll face some of these teams like a Kentucky, like a Pitt, or in the first couple of weeks too, that they have questions, especially at setter, that make them vulnerable, that doesn't have that margin for error to figure things out, where I think Nebraska has question marks. But again, going back to what I said earlier, they have a lot of good options. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen. It's a long season. It's 4 months of figuring out rotations, figuring out the combinations of players that work together, and also 4 months of just being together in a very intimate environment too. So you got to have the right personality mix, and that goes back again to that strong leadership. You look at, I had the 2000 team. I talked to them because that was the last time Nebraska had a coaching change, and Nebraska also won a national title. What was the difference on that team is that senior group of leaders that really kind of stepped up as that coaching change happened and guided Nebraska to an undefeated season. So I think you look at who Nebraska has coming back, they have a lot of strong leaders, even though they did lose Alexi Rodriguez and Merritt Beeson.
I'm curious to watch. You mentioned Pitt. I'm curious to watch Babcock with like lack of familiarity. Like she's so explosive. I'm curious to watch Pitt with kind of some new faces and new places. Just kind of off topic. Lincoln, let me get you out of this. At least the last one from me. When you look at the conference and where the Big Ten is in terms of the caliber of volleyball they play, how aggressive should or do you think a school like Nebraska needs to be in order to, and maybe, first of all, let me ask you this. I said it backwards. Do you think Nebraska's won the national championship enough recently to shake the moniker of close but not quite the last handful of years? Have they won recently enough? And I'm not using the C word when it comes to not, but I'm saying they have been favorites and not come through. Have they won recently enough, first of all, to shake kind of the pressure moniker of we don't do well when in crunch time?
I think Nebraska needs to prove it. I mean, 2017 was the last time they've done it. They've done it. They were in the 18 title game. They were in the 21 title game. They were in the 23 title game. They were in the 24 semifinals with a match point. I mean, 17 is it's 2 whole cycles of players that have gone through. So I think Nebraska.
I'm glad you paused. I was afraid to word the question that way. I almost was going to leave it, but I had to get that out of the way first.
Yeah, I think the Nebraska would like to prove it to, again, solidify themselves, especially because Penn State's won last year too, to kind of put themselves back in the conversation. And it had been a few years since they had won a national title, since Russ Rose had left too. So new coach. I mean, that says that they're a program dynasty, not just a Russ Rose dynasty.
Okay, so with that, how would you schedule in the non-con versus what you already get with your conference slate if you're a team that's in a similar ilk?
Yeah. I like what Nebraska's done too. I think you need to have a couple tests early. I mean, this is kind of what John Cook's always done too. I mean, especially a team that has a lot of experience and talent, you want to challenge them right away. And if you lose a match in August, September, it's not a huge deal. It's not the end of the world as long as it becomes a learning moment. So I mean, volleyball does this a lot too. There's a number of top 10 matchups going on in the first couple of weeks too. They're not afraid to that because they've learned over the years too, where you learn a lot more than you're penalized from those losses. So it's a good to see them going on earlier season too. So I like what Nebraska's done too. I mean, they get some traditional matchups. They do have a couple lower quality teams, but that lends itself to some experimentation. Maybe gets the younger players some playing time. So I like Nebraska's. I would have scheduled what they did.
Fantastic.
Lincoln, I want to take advantage of your expertise real quick before we let you out of here, because there was some couple pieces of big professional news here as well yesterday with the Supernovas leagues, I guess, merging with the
Coach
MLV
Cook and Jordan.
and PVF.
It's crazy.
You've got, obviously, on one side of the ledger, you got John Cook joining the Supernovas as co-owner and GM. On the other side, you have Coach Booth being president of operations and Jordan Larson being part of Love Volleyball. What is just your current status of professional volleyball? Because it feels like a ton has happened in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, it's been an arms race, and it's exciting because I mean, both two leagues, I don't know how long-term sustainable are, but it's both leagues are going for it, and especially realizing how vital Nebraska is to the success of those leagues too. I mean, it's Love Nebraska now to have Jordan Larson invest, to have someone the caliber of Kristen Berthal Booth come in. It just says that this matters. She's willing to take a chance on that. She put her coaching career, she put that on the side and said, we're doing this now. And I think it was a real coup for the Supernovas to have John Cook come in as a general manager and also be an owner. Like you said, I like the dichotomy of Jordan Larson versus John Cook, the owners going battle. That's fun too. And I think for the Supernovas, it was great that we're not going to have 3 leagues. I think I was worried about that when they made the announcement in January that they're going to form their own a different professional league too. 3 leagues is, I think, ridiculous, but 2 leagues is fine. They've rebranded as Major League Volleyball, get a lot more capital investment. I think it's good that the Supernovas are back, because I think that they're one of the most exciting teams in the nation. Just the game day atmosphere is unrivaled for any other team in either league. And what they're doing, it's a fun environment. They play great volleyball. So I was glad to see that, make sure that environment continues going on in the future.
Well, and like you mentioned earlier, I think the Supernovas have shown what a good television product volleyball mentioned the NET or the Nebraska Public Media stuff with Terry Pettit. I don't know how many people that weren't tuned into college volleyball understood how good, like it's a very underrated
Aesthetically, when
television
it's
product.
played well, it
Yeah,
is
incredible
one of the
television
best to
product.
watch.
Yeah, and then you bring in John Baylor, Larry Putney, who are great play-by-play announcers too. The whole product is good too, because volleyball is one of those sports that it's amazing to watch in person, and it actually does translate well to television too. Sometimes in sports, one or the other outweighs, but I think it's an equally enjoyable experience whether you're in the arena or you're on or watching on television. So there's a lot of things going on to make this exciting. So we'll find out. Free agency starts today, so we'll see who the Supernovas have back on their team. Lexi Rodriguez, J.O. Winters is going to be back for Love Nebraska now, so they're really buying into the local talent and making it proving that this is the Volleyball State.
That's Lincoln Arneal. Speaking of Volleyball State, host of the Volleyball State podcast and a contributor and writer for Husker Illustrated as well. Lincoln, thank you so much for giving us
a quick 30 minutes, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Glad to be on, guys. Thanks for having me.